Top of the afternoon, everybody. Chris McDonald with you on our Wednesday mid-afternoon news wrap and headlines. We won't be on here long today, but we wanted to talk with you about a few headlines that are brewing. The big story that we're following this afternoon, and we're going to probably get into it more tomorrow on our regular McFiles broadcast tomorrow night. We've got the Faith Show coming up here tonight at 8 o'clock. As of now, no Faith Chat. I was given thought to having January Smith Littlejohn on tonight at 6, but I really would rather have her on prime time because that interview with her is so good. Victor Avila will be with us maybe tomorrow night later, but he will be on here this week, and then next week we start again. Ricky Wilson's coming Monday night, the 10th. Early bird special Monday night at 7 Eastern Time. And then a whole padre of guests next week. So stick around and so forth. Let's go to the Newswire real quick. A couple of breaking stories out of Breitbart and Gateway Pundit this afternoon. But the big story is this one right here. I'm going to save this one next. I want to talk about this one right here. The Supreme Court, I don't know if you heard about this today. It has ordered the Trump administration to immediately unfreeze foreign aid payments, with Barrett and Roberts siding with the majority. Stunned is the attitude of the White House, and I am too. Alito issues a scathing dissent. Let me read you the article. The highest court in the land caved to the radical left on the U.S. aid disbursements and usurped President Trump's constitutional executive authority today. Wednesday morning, the Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration must immediately release $1.9 billion in foreign aid payments. The Hill notes that this decision maintains a district court's order that the administration must honor foreign aid agreements that existed before Trump took office. The court ruling was 5-4, with all three liberal justices, of course, siding with the nonprofit groups suing to have their funds restored. Conservative justices John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett voted with the majority for reasons unknown. And that is the big shocker. Justice Alito issued a furious dissent in response to this disgraceful ruling. Quote, does a single district court judge who likely lacks jurisdiction have the unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out and probably lose forever $2 billion taxpayer dollars? The answer to that question should be an emphatic no, but a majority of this court apparently thinks otherwise. I am stunned. As the Gateway Pundit previously reported, U.S. District Judge for the District Court of Columbia, Amir Ali, he is an absolute rabid Muslim. He absolutely has wrote some of the most disgusting things about Christians, conservatives, President Trump, and others, and anybody that is anti-Muslim. This guy is a radical. He's a Biden appointee. He temporarily blocked President Trump from canceling foreign aid contracts last month. He's a radical left anti-Trump activist who has accused the president of hating Muslims and lobbied for Black Lives Matter activists and defunding the police. The Trump administration had previously paused the aid for 90 days. However, Ali claimed that blocking foreign aid funding has caused tremendous harm, which it hasn't. Last week, he dressed down DOJ lawyers over the disbursement of funds and demanded the Trump administration award the payments by 11:59 on February the 26th. That was just last week. I don't know why I can't get a straight answer from you. Are you aware of an unfreezing of the disbursement of funds for those contracts and agreements that were frozen before February 13th? Ali is currently weighing whether or not to impose a longer-term preliminary injunction against the foreign aid freeze, according to ABC News. The Supreme Court now has pretty much opened the door for him to do that. Suppose the Supreme Court continues to award activist Democrat judges and refuses to uphold the constitutional separation of powers. In that case, this will fuel a nullification movement, which states and individuals will basically ignore the rulings, and that's basically what's going to happen here. Now, today, when I first heard this, it was pretty disturbing, and we're going to get to that story too, but Thomas Massie, who is a Republican out of Kentucky, my neighbor to the north, my brother and I, when I first heard this, we were talking about this, and this is what the solution to this is going to be. Massie is calling on Congress to take immediate action to defund the United States Agency for International Development following an outrageous SCOTUS ruling. In a jaw-dropping betrayal of American taxpayers and constitutional integrity, the Supreme Court has caved to the radical left, and we just read you the story. And but Massie basically has wasted no time in calling for drastic measures to curb this madness. He's the only Republican who refused to vote on the latest bloated spending bill laid out the only logical path forward. Quote, the solution to this problem is obvious. Congress must quit sending the damn money to U.S. aid. Republicans now control the House and Senate, yet here we are facing a vote on a continuing resolution next week that would fund everything in 2025 as it was funded in 24. And there's the tweet right there. And Charlie Kirk, there's the article, and there's the thing. Now, we've got this article posted, both articles posted, in our, and that's Jim Hobbs. He's the founder of Gateway Pundit. I want to come over here and say something about that, folks. This is a dangerous precedent, and this is a area that the Supreme Court's walking. They do not want to walk because Alito said it profusely right. What they're doing, they're giving these judges a green light, just like Amir or Ali or whatever his name is, that they can go in here and put these temporary roadblocks up, and Trump and them cannot do anything to try to curb the spending and make sure this money don't wind up in radical abortion clinics, radical transgender programs, these things that you heard about last night. A lot of this was coming out of USAID. Basically, USAID funded his own impeachment. They funded Trump's impeachment in 2020 twice. And I'm not going to be so sure they didn't fund the assassination attempt. But let's just say that the USAID program has been one of great corruption. And the Supreme Court just basically stuck their middle finger up to the Constitution today. And, you know, it was funny. I saw Roberts in the House last night with him and Barrett too, and they both had these stone looks on their face. And I said to myself, I wonder if these two are going to be the two betrayers on the court. Roberts has always swung to the other side many times. Barrett shocks me a little bit, but I'm not totally shocked. I've had people tell me about Amy Coney Barrett that she's strong on abortion. She's a strong Catholic, but on other constitutional matters, she is very weak. And you know, I hope she don't turn out to be another Sandra Day O'Connor. Sandra Day O'Connor was basically appointed by Reagan, trying to fill a quota of women, and she turned out to be a very unstable voice on that court. Some days she would go with the liberals, some days she'd go with the conservatives, and it just depended on the weather. And I hope Amy Coney Barrett ain't walking down that path, but that this ruling today is going to put it in the hands of Congress, and that's like putting the Titanic in the hands of the people that sank it and the people that didn't put lifeboats on the Titanic, because the Congress ain't going to do nothing. I hope Mike Johnson and John Thune rally and prove me wrong, because this is what's going to have to happen. They can defund USAID in the budget, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. And I think Johnson needs to make an amendment right now. And I don't know how the votes would have to go. Some of these votes, it's just a simple majority. The Senate has some decorum to it, some kind of rules. You have to have 60 votes for spending bills, some spending bills at least. And it's some of these archaic rules need to be changed. It just needs to be a simple majority. That's why we elect senators. That's why we have elections matter. That's why presidential elections matter. That's why congressional elections matter. That's why House elections matter. This is why we got to get this fraud and all this stuff out of our voting system, and to have people in D.C. that represent our interests. And it's going to wind up in the hands of Congress, because right now Trump's going to have to release that money, $1.9 billion. Now, I don't know if, you know, they found more than that in fraud, but some of these nonprofit groups have screamed bloody murder that by them not getting their little candy and cake right now, it's hurting their, quote unquote, hurting their budgets. And it's the same principle with Trump not being able to fire a federal employee. And these federal employees running into these rogue judges and doing this. And this has got to stop. I don't know how it's going to stop. I don't know the answer to that. I don't have an answer of how it can be stopped, other than Congress impeaching some of these people. But to be frank with you, they're not going to do that. So this is where we're at, and this was a very disappointing ruling. Very, very disappointing ruling. Mindy, you're saying some of these folks need to go to jail. Who needs to go to jail? I mean, the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court. That's how our government is set up. The justices and the judicial branch, they are the check and balance on the executive branch. The executive branch is the check on the judicial branch in many ways, because they're the ones that basically put the Supreme Court justices on there. And then the legislative branch is somewhat of a check to both, because, again, this is where this has got to head. Now, the people that need to go to jail, if there was criminal activity in that disbursement of those funds, and I'm not saying there wasn't, and I'm not even saying I disagree with your statement in general, but when you say these people, that's a wide range of people, because there's a lot of people whose hands are in the till, and it's complicated. But this judicial tyranny, and sadly today it's touched the Supreme Court. I was hoping that there would be, with the majority that we have a 6-3 majority basically on the court right now. And this should have been an easy one. This should have been a layup in basketball. This should have been a touchdown spike. I don't know what's gotten into Amy Coney Barrett. I don't know. She's the one that's very disappointing in this. So I understand your point, but just trying to add a few thoughts to that. Here's another couple of stories that we were following this afternoon, and it's a very troubling story out. Let's go back to our newswire. We'll follow this story. We're going to get some judicial opinions on this at some point this week or next. But this was another very tragic story. I don't know if you heard about this one. 9 students. This just came in this afternoon around 1 o'clock. 9 students who disappeared during vacation in Mexico have been found dismembered on the side of the road. 9 students. They were all from Mexico. Went missing last month during a vacation. Were found dismembered on the side. Authorities found the deceased victims in the trunk of an abandoned car on the side of the road near the border of Puebla and Oaxaca. A bag of several hands, sadly, was discovered nearby. The victims, who were all from Mexico, were shot and tortured before being dismembered. That's a sign of the cartel. Most of the victims have been identified. There's the names there. The New York Post reported this story. The bodies of the 9 students and the group's gruesome remains were discovered in the truck, and so forth. There's the story. The U.S. State Department has issued a Mexico travel advisory to Americans due to violent crimes such as kidnappings, carjackings, robbery, and homicide. Christine Leta posted that story. Folks, bottom line is, it was a commercial back in the 70s, don't drink the water in Mexico. Let me tell you something. If I was you, I wouldn't be doing anything in Mexico right now, because it's a dangerous, 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 dangerous place right now. And that's got cartel written all over it. That murder has got cartel. But, our prayers for those families. That they were Mexican, there's not Americans, but I found the story intriguing. We got that story on our afternoon telegram room as well, and so forth. There's the story from the other day. We got another couple of current stories that I want to share with you. By the way, I don't know if you know this or not, the America's Constitution was being debated at the 1787 Constitutional Convention. Founding Father Benjamin Franklin reportedly said, "The longer I live, the more convincing proofs I see that God governs in the affairs of men." By the way, Franklin was an atheist. He didn't believe in God. He was a universalist, Unitarian, whatever you call it. And it was just wild that, he was part of the founding fathers, but he really started out not believing in God, but he expressed this statement. President Ronald Reagan once stated, "If we ever forget that we are one nation under God, then we will be a nation gone under." Absent any unforeseen national catastrophe, and as a result of God's grace and mercy, America will celebrate 250 years next July. Not this year, but next year, July the 4th, 2026. Isn't that amazing? Receiving God's grace entails getting what one does not deserve, and receiving His mercy entails not getting what one does deserve. America's semi-quincentennial celebration undoubtedly will require much early planning and thoughtful consideration of different events and festivities to take place over the course of July 4th next year, perhaps during the few days prior. Hence, the need to begin planning. Plans to celebrate the 250-year birthday need to include a special gathering in the nation's capital where citizens from throughout the nation come to seek and thank and honor God. The special gathering could be similar and perhaps exceed the Stand in the Gap gathering of men that occurred on the National Mall on October the 4th, 1997. My brother went to that. The climax of the gathering was when all attendees, over 1 million men, fell face down to the ground praying for God's forgiveness for the sins of the nation, thanking God for the many blessings he has bestowed. Similar to the 1997 gathering, the nation as a whole needs to again seek God's forgiveness for the sins committed against his creation and natural order. These sins include the following: medical mutilation of thousands of America's youth, massive moral decay and financial corruption of many of the nation's people and leaders, efforts to destroy God's plan for traditional two-parent families, the murder of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of unborn babies, failure of many pastors and worship leaders to deliberately void teaching about God's justice and wrath for unconfessed and unrepentant sin, but teach only about his love and forgiveness. The attendees need to praise God for his holiness, goodness, and faithfulness, confess America's many sins, humbly pray for God's forgiveness, express sincere thanks for God's blessings, and pray for God's continued blessings. Thus, it is suggested that on or about July 4th next year, the proposed special gathering take place at the National Mall to celebrate the 250th birthday. Citizens living in each of the 50 states who are not able to travel should plan and locally hold such gatherings on or about July 4th, a sincere demonstration. And that gives me an idea of what we're going to be doing next year. But this year we're 249 years in. Next year will be 250. This article was written actually by Paul Gardner. He's a retired Army officer, Vietnam veteran, and an avid lover of America. And he was there at the 1997 Stand in the Gap. It was really called the Million Man. The Million Man March was Farrakhan's sort of mirror to this. But this was the Stand in the Gap meeting that to sort of counteract Farrakhan's Million Man March, which was nothing but a blank you to America and a blank you to God. It was all religious but not spiritual. National Mall. He's a graduate of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, the University of Alabama, and the U.S. Army War College. So it's a fine article there. We've got this posted on our website. Now, a couple of quick things here. We got about 9 or 10 minutes to go. I want to show you a couple of the headlines. I don't know if you heard about this today, but there were 5 mayors. There were 5 mayors that are basically holding rule over sanctuary cities, and they were summoned before Congress today. And Anna Paulina has criminally referred mayors of sanctuary cities to the DOJ for investigation. Here's a video of that. Let's play a couple of these sound bites here for you this afternoon. This is huge and a developing story. And here is a very interesting figure. I want you to look at these numbers. Chicago, 575 million. Denver, 79 million. New York City, 6.9 billion. What they've spent on the illegal aliens just in the last 4 years. Boston doesn't ask whether someone has citizenship status. Here's the conversation on the Hill today regarding sanctuary cities.
Gentlemen's time's expired. Chair recognizes Dr. Fox from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Johnson, in the last 4 years, how much has Chicago spent on care for illegal aliens?
Thank you for that question, Congresswoman. So since 2022, since the governor of Texas began
Just
shipping...
tell me a number. I don't need a speech. Just tell me a number.
So since 2022, since the governor of Texas was shipping individuals to cities across this country, the city's budget, roughly 1% of the city's budget over the course of 4 years.
Mayor Johnston, the same question, and I don't need a speech, just a number.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Thank you, Congresswoman. It's 79 million over the last 2.5 years.
Mayor Adams, same question. How much has New York spent to care for illegal aliens?
Approximately $6.9 billion went out of our taxpayers' funds.
Mayor
Unbelievable.
Wu, same
Unbelievable.
question. How much has Boston spent to care for illegal aliens in the last 4 years?
We do not ask about immigration status and giving city services and providing that access, so we do not have a number.
Taxpayers have been bearing the brunt of the massive wave of illegal aliens who've entered the United States. The Biden administration seemingly declared taxpayers and hardworking Americans collateral damage in the pursuit of open borders. Again, Mayor Johnson, are NGOs providing services to illegal aliens in Chicago?
In accordance with the Welcoming City Ordinance, our sister agencies or city departments, we do not seek the status of any individual that is seeking service.
Mayor Johnston, are NGOs providing services to illegal aliens in Denver?
Thank you, ma'am. When folks arrive on the streets without food or resources or shelter, we do provide food or shelter regardless of where folks arrive from.
Mayor Adams, same question.
Yes, in combination of city agencies and nonprofits, we responded to the migrant asylum seekers humanitarian crisis that hit our city.
And Mayor Wu, I assume you don't know their status, but do you know if there are NGOs are providing services to people arriving in your city without any kind of documentation?
There are community organizations, many of them in Boston, who seek to serve all of our Boston residents.
Congress must provide oversight and ensure.
And that's that. It is rich. I got to say this. Wu has the. You see that? Do y'all see that black mark on her forehead? That's the cross. Today is Ash Wednesday, and the beginning of Lent. And yeah, that's just rich. She's one of the most evil mayors in this nation, and I've been told by pretty good sources, our Salem friends, that she's basically close to a practicing witch. I'm not going to go out and say that verbatim, but she has brought great evil on America's oldest city, one of America's oldest cities in Boston. And, of course, they always are religious when they do this. Basically open the floodgates of hell over a nation and a city and then go to pray to God. It's always how it is. Always how it is. But we're going to follow that story. That'll be a thing we'll have for tomorrow night, too. We'll talk about these sanctuary cities. That's one thing we'll talk with Victor Avila about. It's very interesting and so forth. So I want to go back to Jim Jordan. He actually, we will play this one video, and then we're going to take your questions this afternoon. This is Jim Jordan with Mr. John Stunn from Denver. Roll tape.
Who's Abraham Gonzalez?
Thank you, Congressman. He is a individual that was released from the county jail on Friday in the city and county of Denver.
That's all you know about him?
I do know that he was facing charges that the
Venezuelan gang member arrested by Border Patrol on September 20th, 2023, released into the country by the Biden administration. A few months later, he's arrested in your city, charged with aggravated assault. On March 11th, 2024, he's charged with motor vehicle theft, stole a car, and then on March 20th, 2024, Mr. Gonzalez is charged with felony menacing. 6 days after that last charge, I send you a detainer, which includes an administrative warrant. Basically, it says if you're going to release this bad guy, this gang member who allegedly stole a car, menaced people, and assaulted people, give us a 48-hour heads up. Is that right? That refresh your memory?
I do know about the detainer request. I do know that we provided a notification of release.
What kind of notice did you give ICE when you released him?
We gave him notification. I'm not sure how long in advance it was. I do know that there was
1 hour notice, and you released him 5 days ago, right? Why not give him more heads up? Let's put the slide up. Let's see what it says here. Let's put the slide up. This is what the Denver Sheriff's Department, it's kind of hard to see, so I'll read it. It says, Denver Sheriff Department, ICE notification being released to the streets. I simply said, we want just release him to us. You release him to the streets. Why not release him to ICE?
Thank you. What we've done, and we do this regularly, we've done 1,226 of these, is we notify
I'm
ICE.
asking about one. I'm not asking about the 1,200. I'm asking about Mr. Abraham Gonzalez, who's a gang member from Venezuela, stole a car, assaulted someone. You had him in your custody for how long?
I know that we released
345 days you had him in custody. And I said, hey, can you give us 48 hours heads up?
I don't
You
know.
gave him 1 hour notice.
Mr. Congressman, we notified them released. There were 6 ICE agents present when he was released, so they had enough time to respond and to be present.
Respond where?
To the jail where we released him from. So we released him we notified them of the release time. When we notified them of release, they come to the jail facility to pick them up.
Well,
They're
why
still
didn't you say that's not what you said? You said you release him to the streets. Did you release him to the streets or release him to ICE?
What we do, sir, is we release him from our county jail and we coordinate with ICE on that release time and release date so that ICE can come and pick them up from that location.
Pick them up where? In the parking lot?
Yes, sir, they're on the facility
Guess
property.
what happened in the parking lot?
I know, sir. I've reviewed the video. So I looked at it. I've talked to the sheriff last night.
One of the ICE officers got assaulted, didn't he?
I've reviewed the video,
They had to
sir.
tase the guy, didn't they?
Would you like me to answer, sir?
No, I'd like the answer. Did they tase him?
I know that there were 6 officers.
This guy's giving me a headache. Jim Jordan's trying to get to the point, folks. What Jim Jordan's trying to tell him is that, and this is the revolving door. This is the revolving door of the sanctuary city policy in America. They're catching these people for crimes, finding out they're not here legally, and not notifying ICE. And the whole definition of a sanctuary city is that you can come to a sanctuary city if you're an illegal, and we won't prosecute you, and we won't turn you over to the federal authorities. And that's exactly what the Denver governor's done. And in his illustrious city, the Trey Diarga gang, that's the gang that basically hijacked that apartment complex, took it over with armed means, and Trump has basically named them as a terrorist group. And Pete Hegseth this morning on Fox News basically said that all hell is about to come down on the heads of these illegal gangs. And Holman, all I got to say this about Tom Holman. I love Tom Holman. I would have had federal agents outside that hearing room today. It's not going to stop until an example is made of these sanctuary mayors. Pam Bondi, now Luna, Paulina Luna, Anna Paulina, has referred them to DOJ for an investigation. I would like to believe that's going to go somewhere. I think my frustration with Congress is that a lot of this is window dressing for the camera, and we need to stop the window dressing, and we need to start the hand dressing with something called handcuffs. And until they arrest these mayors and stop this stuff, until they go to AOC's house for aiding and abetting those illegals like she was doing, giving them the location of these ICE agents, until they put somebody in jail, this will not stop. And they can run their mouth and send tersely worded letters. I saw a Twitter post yesterday, and somebody said, "Does this?" Because they were bringing this up a little bit, and they were asking the question, "Are we going to get another more harshly worded letter? Or are we going to get arrest?" And that's my question. You know, when are we going to get arrests and stop getting these wordy letters? I don't care about the letters. I care about justice. And, it's crazy. Jim Jordan confronted this mayor, and this mayor was stumbling all over his words. He was lying through his teeth. Whenever you see a politician do what that mayor did, and semantics with words and semantics with, well, we did that, or we did that, but he don't actually answer the question, we call that a political liar. And what was the saying, his kids, liar, liar, pants on fire? These mayors need to have their hands on fire, because they're handcuffed. That's illegal. But Trump's going to have to step in, and his DOJ is going to have some teeth to it, and so forth. I'm very concerned about this court ruling today. I'm going to get your thoughts here. We've got a few other stories we'll throw out there. We'll go back to Gateway Pundit. I want to just look over the news wires real quick, give you the top 5 or 6 headlines of the day, and then we'll call it a day tonight, and then we'll get ready for our face show tonight. Those are the stories there. Tommy Robinson is in confinement in England. The radical leftist streamer that called for Senator Rick Scott to be killed has been banned from Twitch for just less than 24 hours, and he's been reinstated. Don't you love it? This is interesting. We're going to be following this. You can see you can see the blue. That's my mouse doing that. Justin Trudeau is begging for mercy, begging for mercy for these tariffs, and Trump ain't going to give it to him, and he don't need to. He does not need to. And I want to say something about the tariffs. I always agree with James. James is a good guy, and I agree with what he's saying, his concerns about the tariffs, but I don't share the concern. It's not saying that James is wrong. James may be proven to be right ultimately, what's going to happen as a result of these tariffs. But, folks, I think that, again, our choice is simple. Like I said last night, we can either keep letting these countries run over us like a train, take advantage of us, not say anything, just lay down and say, well, y'all, whatever you want to do to us is fine, and we want to get along with the world, and screw us up the butt, and don't hand us a can of Vaseline when you do, and just do your thing. Or we can do what President Trump is doing. If you're going to put these tariffs on our goods, then you're not going to do business with us without tariffs on yours. I think that's fair, folks. I think that's economically sound. That is sound economics. These countries will come around. They're trying to beat their little spoons on the table because they can't get their way with Trump, and they're not going to get their way with Trump, and that's okay. Let them beat their little spoons. Let them throw their peas. Let Trudeau say we're gonna put tariffs on America and we're gonna retaliate. No, well, retaliate all you want to, Mr. Governor. That's what Trump called him again today. He said our 51st governor. Canada's about to be part of America. And I will say this: one of Trump's people in the Treasury Department, and I do agree with this, but I will even say Pollier, the new guy that's everybody's darling, the conservative, he's out there saying basically that he's not happy with what Trump's doing with the tariffs. And I think Pollier and Trudeau both missed the point. It's not something Trump wants to do, but there has been an uneven playing field economically with the trade between Canada and the United States. And if Pollier wants to come to the table in good faith and work out an agreement, I think he will find a willing partner with Trump. Trudeau don't care. Trudeau is up there, and he's just trying to play big boy. He's just trying to play big pants Justin. His daddy was useless, and Justin's been useless for Canada. And the Trump spokesman today said it right. I believe that if Trudeau was out of the picture and we had another leader to deal with it, this could be rectified. I tend to agree. With that. And the same thing goes with Canada. If Canada wants to come to the table, work out a trade agreement, I think Trump will be all ears. Mexico wants to do the same, I think we're all ears. But this is more than just economics. It's about that fentanyl and about our border as it relates to Canada and Mexico. Trump's tired of our citizens being killed by fentanyl. And he's tired of it coming across that northern border without any kind of stoppage by the Canadians. The Mexicans have actually started getting the message. I understood that 900 cartel members were arrested this week down there by the Mexican forces because Pete Hegseth basically laid the law down to them that you either get this under control, you either arrest your cartel people, or we're going to come down and do your job for you, and we will do it. And they got the message. And that's what happens when you talk to people like adults and you talk to them not as children. And you deal with them with a tough love and you don't let them run over you like a train. I'm okay with that. And every American should be. It's like Trump said. About the tax cuts that he's wanting to do. He said even the left should be happy about that. They couldn't even get happy about that last night. But that's some of our stories today that we're following, and these will be on the Newswire, and Gateway Pundit is our source. There's the Massey story we talked about. This was a precious story last night. He renamed, Trump did, the Refuge after the 12-year-old girl brutally murdered by illegal aliens. He announced that he would name the wildfire Refuge after Jocelyn Nagari. She was the 12-year-old that was brutally assaulted and murdered by two illegal aliens. The crime served as a shocking reminder of the devastating consequences of Joe Biden's open border And Trump said last night that she walked into a nearby convenience store. What horrific end of this young girl's life. She was kidnapped, tied up, and assaulted for 2 hours under a bridge, and then horrifically murdered. What a sad end. Arrested and charged with this heinous crime were 2 illegal monsters from Venezuela. They were released into America by the last administration through their ridiculous open border. The death of this beautiful 12-year-old girl and the agony of her mother and family touched our entire nation. Alexis, I promised that we would always remember your daughter. And he said, and earlier tonight, I signed an order keeping my word to you. And he held a copy of the executive order. Her mother, Alexis, who was a guest of Melania, was seen mouthing, "Thank you." Here is, I think, that moment. Watch this.
Done. Here tonight is a woman I have gotten to know, Alexis Nungary from Houston. Wonderful woman. Last June, Alexis's 12-year-old daughter, her precious Jocelyn, walked to a nearby convenience store. She was kidnapped, tied up, assaulted for 2 hours under a bridge, and horrifically murdered. Arrested and charged with this heinous crime are 2 illegal alien monsters from Venezuela, released into America by the last administration through their ridiculous open border. The death of this beautiful 12-year-old girl and the agony of her mother and family touched our entire nation greatly. Alexis, I promised that we would always remember your daughter, your magnificent daughter, and earlier tonight I signed an order keeping my word to you. One thing I have learned about Jocelyn is that she loved animals so much. She loved nature. Across Galveston Bay from where Jocelyn lived in Houston, you'll find a magnificent national wildlife refuge, a pristine, peaceful, 34,000-acre sanctuary for all of God's creatures on the edge of the Gulf of America. Alexis, moments ago, I formally renamed that refuge in loving memory of your beautiful daughter, Jocelyn. So, Mr. Vice President, if you would, may I have the order?
And again, no Democrats. No Democrats. There's the order. There's her mom, and so forth. No Democrats to be seen. Standing up for that even. Pretty sick, isn't it? Alrighty, we have been going right at 40 minutes. You got about 10 minutes to give me your questions real quick this afternoon. That's mainly the main headlines we got. And if you got any comments or anything you'd like to say or add, speak now or forever hold your peace. We're grateful to see everybody in the house this afternoon. And I'll just read a few of the comments we have already. Jeannie says, shame on Roberts and Barrett. I never really trusted her. Jeannie, I think that is a growing sentiment. I was told by somebody that she was a chameleon. Very strong on abortion. She's Catholic. Her faith is Catholic. It's not really, I wouldn't call it Christian, but her faith is Catholic. She does support life. Catholics support life. And maybe in the big scope of things, that's what Trump put her on there for, because he knew she would fight for the end of Roe v. Wade. Now, this other stuff, I'm not sure if he was ready for what she's done. Today was a very, very disappointing ruling. It's going to open the floodgates for these lower-level scumbags to do exactly what this other judge did, because they're going to. That's set a precedent now that if anything that Joe Biden did in an agreement and Trump tries to stop it, they're basically removing his executive order power. And that is unconstitutional. He's got the constitutional authority to rule as he sees fit. And Barrett and Roberts said no, he does not. That's not good. That's not good. Anyway, any other questions, folks? And if we ain't got any questions, I'm going to wrap it up because we got a face show coming up. Sandy says, woo has ruined Boston. My niece and husband with 4 little ones live near TD Garden in Boston. I pray for them all living there. Yeah, I've heard nothing but very bad things, Sandy. Good to see you today. I've not heard anything good about Wu. Nothing. I've heard some pretty dark stuff. And I don't want to get into her lifestyle. I want to say she's married to a woman. I don't want to make that as fact. I don't try to research these guys' personal lives. I mean, I personally don't care if they're running their cities right. I mean, their personal life's none of my business. It's between them and God. But how they run the city and how they're spending probably billions of dollars on the illegals is my business. And that's what she's been doing. And I don't doubt that she has ruined Boston. Boston's a pretty city. Boston is a beautiful city, and we're going to be visiting it very soon again. Very soon. All righty. Well, it don't look like we got any more questions. We're going to wrap this up this afternoon. Listen, we hope you enjoyed the news show. I'll see you back here tonight at 8 o'clock for our midweek fellowship. We'll be praying for the sick, updating our service, some faith announcements, and some other things, and so forth. So we're grateful that you've been with us this afternoon. Now, we can't promise we're going to do one of these every Wednesday, but I wanted to talk about the Supreme Court ruling and get a few thoughts, and we don't have many thoughts today, but that's okay. Liz Golden says, our Supreme Court is compromised. I never thought I'd see it in my lifetime. Used to be able to trust him. Liz, I agree with that, and I disagree with that at the same time. I agree with you. They've been compromised. The fact of the matter is they've never been trusted. This has been going on for 40 years, and I think we've come to understand that, it's funny, Liz, and when I say I disagree with you, it's just perspective. It's not a disagreement with you, but I think that the Republicans, when a Republican president, if you look at the justices that Republicans have put on that bench, most of them stay true, but the ones that don't, their betrayal tends to be very deep. Trump put Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett on that bench. Bush Jr., his top picks were, he picked Alito, and it was Reagan that nominated Bush Sr. One put Thomas on there. And so that's 5. And John Roberts was a Bush Jr. appointee too. I'll just say this. What I'm saying, my perspective is different. I don't think we've ever been able to trust him. I keep thinking of Sandra Day O'Connor with Reagan. Sandra Day O'Connor in the 1980s was one of the most conservative voices among women that you could have ever heard. I don't know what happened to her. Maybe your word compromise maybe took place. Money has a bad influence in D.C., even on that Supreme Court, and lobbyists and so forth. And I keep going back to last night. I watched Roberts and I watched those justices. They were stoic. They had no expression on their face whatsoever. And somebody asked me today, where was Thomas, where was Alito, where were the others? Well, there's nothing that's written in stone that says a Supreme Court justice has to come to one of these. Because ultimately, I think it is political, whether you like what's being said. Half the country hated Trump last night for what he said. Half the country loved it. I was on the side that loved it. But I just sensed something was coming with them today. And I was right. I had my gut. My gut was right. And I've never trusted any of them. I've never trusted any of them. But anyway, it's a good point. Well taken. Good point and well taken. No Zella, the whole court heard it. He wasn't the only one that ruled against it. Him and Barrett. Barrett was the one that deep sunk it. Roberts would have went over to the side. It's still been 5-4 conservative. Barrett's the one that disappointed me. He's not the one that heard it. He issued a temporary stay. That was on some other things, and then the whole court, because Alito wrote a dissenting opinion. Alito wrote the dissenting solution. Barrett was the one that cast the deep six. Cedric, it is disappointing. It really is. It really is. All right, guys. Well, we had almost 200 people here on a Wednesday afternoon, and we're grateful for you guys that are joining us. And again, nothing major. We're not going to have any guests. We don't have any guests. And on Wednesdays, we can do it. We've got something coming up next week. We're going to be on an hour a day from 2 to 3 on the K-Star Network, and that'll be your news update. That's where you'll need to come listen to us. But I felt like the Supreme Court story was worth it, and we hope you enjoyed the show today. And God bless you. God bless your families. We'll see you back here tonight on the face side. We won't be here on the news side. We'll be here on the face side around 8 o'clock, and we hope you'll join us for that then. And then tomorrow, full day of shows. Oh, we got some good folks coming. Victor Avila, January Smith Littlejohn, and somebody called Christopher Wayne McDonald. Goodness gracious. I don't know about that McDonald man. Everybody else, they're pretty good folks. That McDonald man, I hear he's a wild man. I hear he's funny. He's a little nutty, but he sure is funny. And he wears funny hats, so who knows what hat he may wear tomorrow night. Anyway, all righty. Be blessed out there. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and have a good afternoon on Thursday.
Who can take your money with a twinkle in their eye? Take it all away and give it to some other guy. The government. The government can. And who can tax the sunrise? Who can tax the trees? Let you run a business and collect up all the fees. The government. The government can. And the government can, 'cause they mix it up with lies and make it all taste good. The government takes everything we make to pay for all of their solutions, like healthcare, climate change, pollution. Just throw away the Constitution. I wrote that, thank you. And who can give a bailout? Tell us to behave. And make the founding fathers roll over in their grave. I don't care if you hate me, I'm going to sing it anyway. Oh, the government can. And the government can go and mix it up with lies and make it all yummy, 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 yummy. The government takes everything. They're all power hungry and malicious. Their economics are fictitious. Soon we'll have to eat our dishes. Yeah. Delicious. And who can be a failure? In so many ways. And instead of getting fired, hey, we'll give ourselves a raise. California, you know what I'm talking about. Government can. And the government can, 'cause they mix it up and like make it all taste good. And the Uncle Sam can, he mixes it all lies. Get down, get down. And I feel so good. I could.